Shenanigans.
All right, Lizzie, you've got a sad story about a carjacking just down the street from you. Is this truth, lies, or shenanigans?
You know, when this happened, so this happened, it's been almost 2 weeks, 2 weeks now. And they said it was by Nationals Park, which is the um, ballpark where the local MLB baseball team plays. I was like, what? What? You know, I always think in my neighborhood that I can hear everything. And so I'm like, what? I'm looking out the window, like, I didn't hear anything. But this was a very, very, very sad story. So to give, a point of reference, a little background here, DC has in the past, I would say 5 or 6 months, but particularly in 2021, DC has seen a dramatic increase in carjackings in the city, particularly where in which the perpetrators are teenagers. And so this was a situation where two teenage girls, one 13, one 15, one who is from Washington, D.C., one who is from Fort Washington, Maryland, left their homes, decided that they were going to carjack someone that day. They had tasers in hand, and they came into contact with a 66-year-old Uber Eats driver by the name of Muhammad Anwar, right? And they got into the back of his car. They got into his car initially, and then they overtook him, overpowered him. So somehow he ended up as a passenger in the car. And they drove for a little bit, and then no, he was in the back seat at some point. And
No,
then
he
they
was in the
drove.
driver's seat.
Prior to the
Yeah, no, he ended up in the driver's seat. And when they couldn't physically remove him, they tased him. And that's why he was unable to get out of the vehicle. They gunned it while he was still in the driver's seat.
No, if
But she's
you
saying
look at
beforehand, before that.
before that, Rob, if you look at some of the other video before that, he's in the back seat. And then, but you're right, they did tase him at some point. So they did assault this man. And then he at some point was outside of the car. They were parked, but they were arguing. There was a confrontation, and he's trying to regain control of the car. You see, and we'll play the video, but you see the verbal exchange between the young ladies, and it was actually the 13-year-old who was driving the car. The 13-year-old who is alleged to have committed a carjacking back in January. So this wasn't her first time at the rodeo, okay? They, after arguing with him back and forth, you can hear her revving the car in the video, and then she steps on they said the 15-year-old switched the gear, and then the 13-year-old stepped on the gas, and that's when the car takes off with him still on the side, with him still hanging on the side. They hit a bunch of things, and then they crash at the end of the block. So Neo, you want to show the video? Viewer discretion is advised for this video.
Oh, heck yes. This is graphic.
We've blurred as much as we can, but it's still pretty graphic.
It's very graphic.
They're teams.
What's going on?
This is my car. They're trying to assault? Inside is his car. He is their friend. No, this is my car. Stop it! Oh my God, somebody just stole it. She's still in their car. She's still in the car? Yeah, we called the cops. Call the cops. Call the cops. It's been called. It's been called. It's been called. It's been called. They stole the car. These girls stole the car.
Oh my God, it's lit.
Hey, they stole the car. They stole the car.
It's while he was hanging up the side of the door.
He's under the car?
No, he's right there.
Yeah, he's right there. He's been propelled from the car, but...
Everybody, I need you to step back from the seat. I saw what happened. I need everybody to step back.
So I'm not sure if you guys were able to hear or decipher what was going on once the car crashed, but there were randomly a lot of National Guard in the area on the scene. So they were the ones who were able to actually stop the young ladies from running. They pulled them from the car and they apprehended them until the police officers, law enforcement got there and were able to handle the situation. But the young lady in pink, when she got out of the car, the first thing she says to the
Where's
National
my phone?
Guard and to her friend is, "Where's my phone? My phone is still in there," meaning her phone is still in the car.
That's what pisses me off.
No, paid no attention to this poor man who was on the ground dying for no reason. She was more concerned about her phone. And so this story was in the headlines for almost every day here in the city. And like I said, we've had a rash of carjackings. I think the carjacking number per last week was over 100, the number of carjackings in the city for the year last week, whereas the same time last year it was 22. So there's something going on. My question to you guys, my panel, is, so it came out this week that prosecution has decided or is contemplating offering a plea deal to these young ladies. Now, the 13-year-old, by DC law, she cannot be tried as an adult. She will be tried as a juvenile. She's 13. The prosecution had decided that they were not going to try the 15-year-old as an adult. However, they are thinking about offering a plea deal this week. So my question to you all, what do you feel about that? What do you feel about a plea deal for these young ladies? And again, they are 13 and 15. But on the flip side, an innocent man lost his life for nothing. For nothing.
Can we start
We'll
with Johnny
start with-
Storm? Because this is the first time she's actually seeing the video.
I keep in mind their age. However, they are bold enough to rob a grown man for his car. So I don't feel like I feel like they should be tried as adults. I feel like they should. I know that's harsh, but I feel like, especially Liz, you mentioned that the 13-year-old is the one that has a past of carjacking. I would like to know a little bit more about their past. But I feel torn because I'm always the one on the panel that's like, no, the least jail time, the least. But I feel like that was what I just saw was absolutely disgusting. And then you have to understand the details surrounding the case. Like, she got out of the car, was asking for her phone. They didn't care, basically. So try them as adults.
Frankie, what do you think?
It's really my condolences to the Anwar family. I can't imagine. It's such a senseless loss. But because we're dealing with a repeat offender, we're dealing with something that was premeditated. We're dealing with an assault with a taser. Everything. These are not a child's actions, and as such, I don't think that they should be viewed as children, because this is an adult crime. This is a senseless loss of life, and that's it. Why did they do it? For a thrill? For whatever reason? For transportation? I mean, at worst, they needed a ride somewhere and had no cash, but it still doesn't excuse the crime.
So Rob, let me just interject there very quickly, because there is a belief in the city that there is a carjacking ring going around between DC, Maryland, and Virginia that is being led by adults, and that they're picking teenagers to commit these crimes because they know teenagers won't get a lot of time. And I'm not saying that to absolve anyone of anything. I'm just saying that's what's being put out there, that it's actually a bunch of adults that's running this. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I can understand why it's happening more, because I mean, we're a year into the pandemic. A lot of people are hurting financially, and a lot of people are hurting psychologically. So to get somebody on board with risky behavior would be easier at this point than it was a year ago. People are broke, so to motivate them to engage them in criminal activity would be easier than it was a year ago. So I do understand the increase in the numbers, but this, yeah, just the way that this went down was absolutely horrible. And I think that unfortunately, these poor young girls need to face the consequences of their actions. And there needs to be an example set for the rest of society that this won't be tolerated.
So my thoughts are, of course, you know how I am with kids. I'm partial to kids because,
We're all partial to kids.
well, okay. I'm more of an advocate for kids in the sense that I don't think that they should be treated as adults. Um, I think certainly the adults related to the crime, if there are, need to be uh, the ones that need to be accounted for. But children, I remember when I was 13 and 15, I was just trying to figure out what life was. I mean, and if someone, just like uh, people who are in gangs or drugs or selling drugs, you know, they are manipulated because they don't understand the consequences of their actions. They don't understand the potential consequences of their actions fully. In part, they do. I mean, they're old enough to at least understand right from wrong. But, if you're doing a carjacking with a stun gun, a child, a 13, 15-year-old, doesn't think through the process well enough, especially if they've done it before. They don't think through it well enough to think, okay, I could find myself in a situation where the person's going to fight me, where he's going to be hanging out the car, where I might accidentally put it into gear while I'm revving it up, and I might cause an accident and might kill him. Those thoughts, that reasoning does not go through a child's mind the way it would through our mind as adults.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. So, do they understand the consequences? A bit, but not fully, not as an adult would understand the consequences. So I don't know that I don't know about plea deal. It depends on what the plea deal is. Um, I might consider a plea deal, considering the full situation. If I've met the girls and I felt that they were in a situation where maybe, like you said, they were in a carjacking ring or something like that, I might consider a plea deal for them, especially in exchange for information about those adults. So I don't know. That's where I stand. At least try them as juveniles and maybe a plea deal.
I
Is it?
wanted to add also, I have a sister. I'm sorry, Liz, really quick. I have a little sister who's 14 years old. And I was just putting myself in the situation like if my sister did something with one of her friends, how would I take it? Would I want people to have mercy on her, or would I want her to be tried as an adult? And I feel like I still would want her to have some repercussions. But I I don't know.
But even
I
if she's
still
your
feel biased
sister,
because they're
Johnny, if your
little.
sister was a repeat offender, if your sister had these violent tendencies, then you might be turning to the system and saying, okay, you know what? She needs some tough
I
love
don't know that
now.
she had violent tendencies. I mean,
Someone who uses a
carjacking with a
taser
stun
against
gun is
someone else. I don't know, man.
She's
A stun
13
gun
and
can
she's
a stun
had
gun
two
can kill
carjacks.
you, Leo.
it
A
can.
stun gun can
I'm
a
not saying
stun
it
gun is
can't,
a
Again.
weapon.
but
First of all, they
how,
had no right to have the stun gun.
how many
They had no right
13-year-olds
to.
recognize or realize that?
That's not my problem as a victim. That's not my problem. They had a stun gun. They had no right to have a stun gun. They had no legal right to be driving a car. They're not eligible to get a
Yeah,
license,
stun guns are
which is
illegal in
why
DC.
which is why the young lady couldn't drive straight down the street.
Yeah.
They also certainly didn't have a legal right to rob someone. So as where a lot of people, and I understand that these are young people,
Yeah,
but
very.
when I walk out of the house every day, I have a right to be safe. This Uber driver had a right. He was an Uber Eats driver, so he was delivering food. He has a
Yeah.
right to make his delivery and not worry about something like this. And so I'm not even gonna get into whether they should be tried as adults. Because per the statute, the 13-year-old cannot be, and for whatever
And
reason, the
should not.
prosecution thinks that the 15-year-old won't be. But what's the point in a plea deal? If she's
I'm iffy
13
on the plea.
and under the statute, she will be in jail without a plea deal. She would be in some type of remand up until
Rehabilitation
she's
facility.
18 So then what's the point of a plea deal? That means she's getting a slap on the wrist because she was the one who was driving, who put her foot on the gas. That means she's getting a slap on the wrist for killing someone.
Do we know the actual plea deal? What
No, because it hasn't
They
been
haven't
offered
announced
yet.
it.
The prosecution just said that they are considering it and that they will be talking to the young lady's lawyers this week. And my position is, okay, no, let's not try them as adults, even though, you know, you don't have Lizzie with the gavel, but let's not try them as adults, but at least give them the full punishment under the law for juveniles. Let's stop treating these
fair enough.
acts with kid gloves, because this is why this is why
It's a serious
these
crime you
adults,
need to pay for.
and this is why these adults keep getting these kids to do crimes, because they know they won't do any time.
Taking advantage.
But also, this is why a lot of these kids think, well, you know, I don't care.
This
I
is a
don't
tough
care.
one. This is a tough.
It's it,
It is very tough. Yeah.
and I let me just say, just to end this, you know, I moved back to DC 2 weeks or two years ago, almost exactly 2 years ago, from living in New York for 21 years. I was completely shocked when I moved back down here about the level of aggressiveness with a lot of teens in this city. I've seen it on the subway.
Yeah.
I've seen it walking down the street.
Yeah.
I've had to check myself for not, you know, getting in a fight
DC
with
teens
some
have been
young
kind of
girls.
aggressive over the years. I remember growing up in
But this,
DC.
but this is nothing that
Yeah,
I grew up
DC's
in
always
DC.
been tough.
I never experienced this growing up in DC. Now, granted, I left when I was 18,
You
but
were hanging
as
around
an
some good
adult,
people then, because I did.
I like to think I was hanging around average people. Like, not all DC
Okay,
is
well, I was hanging around the people you talking about because I know I know a bunch of people that are talking about
the
just like you
average.
talking.
But
Maybe that is true. Like in
you
regards
were
to
a
the
DC
generation.
teen. You were a DC teen. Were you acting like that?
I wasn't. No, me personally, obviously.
So that's what I'm saying. This isn't the average person in
Average?
DC.
No, no, no. Of course not. It's not the average person
That,
today.
that's what I said. So I was shocked to to witness the level of aggression that's going on in DC with these teens. And like I said, the number is now over 100 carjackings versus 22 for last year. And so I think whatever the statute is, we need to stick to that. We need to stick to that.
All right. Kevin Thaxton says no deal. Jose says no deal. They were old enough to steal a car and kill a man. Throw the books at these kids. Kalai says a repeat offender shouldn't be given a plea deal. Daria Winter says, remember stealing cars by 7, 8, 9-year-olds in Kenilworth about 10 years ago, so the kids' legs couldn't even reach the pedals. And she also says, you must understand the need for juvenile laws. She says, as a former appointed leader in the DC Juvenile Justice Advisory Group, juveniles must not be charged as adults.
But that's not what we're talking about here. Like, I'm not talking about charging anyone as an adult. I'm talking about sticking to the juvenile laws and not offering them any extra protections. That's what
Oh
I'm
no, but
talking about.
I mean, you weren't the only one who said. You weren't the only one who
Yeah, I said it.
Robbie and Gianni said that they think they should. Yeah, I don't think she was referring to you.
Now, if we want to talk, you know, if I was the head mofo in charge, then yeah, I would probably be on the side of, you know, Robbie and a little bit of what Gianni was saying, even though she's vacillating a little bit, which is totally understandable.
Yeah,
these are not easy issues, but
yes,
I mean, I'm still vacillating.
I got into a verbal confrontation. I've gotten into a couple of verbal confrontations with teens since I've been back here. And I've had to, you know, check myself, but also I'm looking at them like, are you serious right now? You are really talking to an adult this way? Really?
DC
Okay.
kids.
All right.
Ernest Cooper says, don't try a child as an adult. Sherry Blaine Priest says, I struggle with this one, Lizzie Enders. It seems so many children these days are involved with adult crime. Ernest Cooper suggests you should make harsher penalties for children in cases like this rather than trying them as adults. And Kevin Thaxton asks parents, where are their parents? Ephraim says they should be tried as an adult because the crime is serious. Mike Wolf, one
I
more.
mean,
Mike Wolf.
it's likely that there are no parents involved in the situation. I mean, we don't know who they were staying with. That's another. It's likely that there is no consistent parent
Yeah.
involved in their lives.
And that's what
Because
Paulette Bertrand says. Big part of the problem is many parents were not able to fit that role.
because
Mike,
even though we're in a pandemic, school was in session that day. School was in session that day. These young people should have been
Wow.
in school, either at home or in the classroom. So it's likely that there is no
Yep.
parent, unfortunately.
Mike Wolf says, I want to know more about these kids' family situation. Also, not dealing with them as adults doesn't mean not
Same.
dealing with them at all. All right.
Yeah.
Great hot topic, Lizzie. All right, let's get to the next one. Robbie Rock.
Yeah.